everyone. I'm Michelle Pacheco, and this is my new podcast. And as you probably saw already, the new channel that I created is called People and Their Life Stories. And once again, I would like tonight to bring one of my dear friends, old friends, and teachers. We met quite a few years ago, and we developed a good relationship, and we shared many stories of life, the way that our life went by, and we took turns to do things in a different way than we started our life. And why I wanted to bring Ron LaPlace tonight, you'll meet him in a few moments, is because I personally met him in the moment that it was a very critical moment in my personal life. I was at the moment where I had to make a choice in continuing to work in the corporate finance world in Romania, in the United States. Sorry, I'm Romanian, but I was in the United States. And I was living in New York for about 20 years, working in the financial world. And life was hectic. I used to love what I used to do. And I developed that career with passion. However, I realized that it wasn't satisfying me as much as when I started it. And I think that many of us can relate to this. I also developed during half of my life my interests and my hobbies, which are related to spiritual life, to the questions of who I am, trying to answer the questions: who am I? Where am I coming from? What I'm meant to do here? And just before I met Ron, I had this question: what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? Is this it? I felt that is unfulfilling, unsatisfying, that there is more to life than what I was doing. Of course, I was a mother, had a young, beautiful daughter. That was a great project for my life, but I felt that for myself, for my soul, there is more than that. So I met Ron LaPlace in this moment of turmoil, so to speak. I was happy. Don't take me wrong, I wasn't unhappy, but I was in the process of finding, what am I supposed to do here? So I met this beautiful man called Dromvolo Melchizedek, and going to his class and taking his class, I met Ron LaPlace, and he was like what I needed in that moment, because he had this peace, the way he speaks, and he was so kind to everyone, and he had wisdom in his words, and it felt so calming talking to someone like him in comparison with other people that I was surrounded in that moment of time. New York was the hectiest place in the world, and fast paced, and nobody had time for nothing. Everything had to happen yesterday. And here I started to meet people that were in a different type of environment, and they said, everything is perfect as it is. Let's see what the answers are. So this was the beginning of my work in developing a new life for myself, if I could say so. It's like starting a new life in my previous life. So I didn't have to die to go away. I just kind of rebirthed myself into this life. So just to introduce you a little bit more about Ron, he is, for almost 3 decades, Ron has been teaching the principles of sacred geometry and how this can lead to the opening of the heart and to a balanced relationship between the heart and the mind. As a certified teacher of Awakening the Illuminated Heart, Ron has been assigning others to find their grounded center of being and purpose for 13 years. For 2 decades, he has also been teaching new ways of working with sound to assist in bringing balance to the body and the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of life. So, Ron, this being said, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here tonight with me as one of my first co-workers, and in our beautiful discussion about this wonderful subject of developing in our life. So I'd like you to introduce yourself in your own words now. What would you like to say to the people that are watching us now about yourself as an introduction?
Well, that was heartwarming for me, Michelle, as you went into the past and brought out some wonderful memories. We've shared quite a bit together. And as you were doing that, something came up in my memory, and I'd like to add that as an anecdote. And it's about you and your previous life in the financial world, because I didn't know you then, but I arrived one day, gosh, about 12, 13 years ago in New York at your request to do a workshop. And lo and behold, I believe the day before, when I arrived in New York, the venue that you had found canceled. They all of a sudden there was no place to do the workshop. And so I watched you that day call on your old connections in the financial world. And within a few hours, you had found not only a new location, but it was perhaps way better than we would have had before. And so that that showed something to me, that the past is important, and that we don't burn our bridges. What we do is we move on to other things that resonate, and it's just the direction we go in our lives. But we can take all those things from the past and use them as a part of our past that lights our way as we walk into the future.
That
So,
is, yeah, that is so interesting what you said, Ron, because it's exactly what it is. I realize for a long time now that my previous life, in this life, everything I've learned, developing myself, growing as a corporate worker in different areas, it helped me with what I'm doing today. When I was a child, I couldn't speak in public. I grew up being very shy. So being thrown up in the corporate world and being kind of forced, so to speak, to make presentations, to talk to people, to pick up the phone, to deal with different situations, it actually helped me to become who I'm today, and be able to even do this podcast with you now and to share with the world, our thoughts, our emotions, our history, our ideas, and not to be afraid that we are going to be judged. And this is very important because judgment, I think, it's the worst that can happen to a human being, to be judged or to judge others. And I think it's something that stops us to evolve, to grow, and to become who we are meant to be. So, Ron, what I would like to invite people here, and you are one of the first, is to talk about what is like in my life. I was going along with my life, discovering I thought that here I am, I'm climbing on the corporate ladder, I build up career, and I'm having a happy life. And there is something at some moment in our life that clicks, and we realize that this is not, it's beautiful, it's good. I can't complain, I had everything I need, but maybe I feel that something is missing, that it's like you search for something in the dark, but don't realize, you don't know what you're looking for. And then there is something like a click, like somebody lights a candle, and you're gonna say, oh my God, all of this was here all this time and I didn't know. So this is the moment, just about a little bit before I met you, but then what was crystallizing. It happened with me, and I took a turn and I discovered a whole new world that spoke to my heart, to my soul, to what kind of my heart was looking for all this time. and I didn't know it's there. So I want to know, how did it happen for you? What happened for you in your life when you knew that, it's a change of direction of some sort?
That's an interesting question. For me, Michelle, that happened in stages. And so I'll go back to the first, and that goes back about 55 years when I was 18 years old. And previous to that, I had, grown up in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. And I had no inclination for any of the things that I'm doing at this moment and have done now for um, most of the rest of the time previous to that 18 years. But I had come to a place in my life at that age where I didn't even know if I belonged here. I wasn't sure I should stay. And perhaps you can read between the lines about what that means. And I had a moment when, through a friend, he connected me to another individual that I met only once. And that individual, I ended up in a downstairs basement bedroom with that individual putting a set of headphones on my ears. I'd only just met him, and saying, listen to this. And in those days, of course, we were playing LPs, records. And I listened while he tried to find the right place, and with the arm of the needle that was being placed on the record. And when he found it, the first thing I heard was, between the eyes and ears there lie the sounds of color and the light of a sigh.
Wow.
And that is the beginning of a recording called The Word from an album by the band called the Moody Blues. And this is in 1969. And then afterwards, there's a song that ties right together with the poem that precedes it. And the song is about a word, and that word is Om. And when they sang that word for the first time, there was a charge that went up my spine. I had no idea what was happening, but something very powerful happened in that moment. And that was the catalyst. Shortly after that, I left home and left my parents' home and moved up to another town in northern Alberta, and was living on my own. And on the journey up there, a friend gave to me a book, and that book is called The Third Eye by Lobsang Rampa. And in that book, I learned about things that I had no concept for. And they were things like reincarnation, things like cause and effect, that I was actually in charge of my own destiny. And previous to all of this, I was not sure I belonged, because in the world that I looked out onto from my perspective, I couldn't see where justice lied. And again, I understood nothing about astrology, but my astrology there's a lot of Virgo in my chart. And for me, justice is very important. It's just my nature. And so all of a sudden a whole new world opened up. And that was the beginning of a journey that has taken me into really uh, what I've been connecting to as my reason for being here at this time and purpose. And it just becomes more and more obvious as we move along. It's like a refining. As I learned about things, I learned about a process called alchemy. And alchemy is all about distillation. And that's exactly what our lives represent. Certainly, what I've connected to in this is that we are refining ourselves more and more. And one of the beauties of getting to be older is that that refinement also includes the ability to let go, to let be, to let God. And that's been a part of life that I've been enjoying more and more as
That's
we move through this process.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, that's interesting. So, I talk to many people, friends, teachers, and all sorts of people. People that are like searching for themselves for something, and they all acknowledge and realize that there was just a moment in their life when they least expected that something appears, and it was a book, it was a person, like I said, it was a class, it was something, a movie, a song, something that kind of made a click. So what happened to you after this moment?
Well, that winter was spent trying to find everything I could that could offer more information. And we're talking now, like I said, about 1969. And there was no internet. For those who don't understand that, books were pretty much the only way, or direct contact. And what happened for me is I found some information, but what it did was spark a real desire for more. And that desire started to manifest. Again, I didn't understand the process then. I understand it now, and I can and look back on it from that perspective. What was happening was I started to feel in my heart something, a desire began to manifest that I knew was important. And that was to connect in whatever way I could with the information that I felt would be important. And what ended up happening was when I returned back from the place that I had gone for the winter, northern Alberta, when I came back down to southern Alberta, the first thing that happened when I got to the town called Lethbridge, where I was living at the time, was I met an old friend, and we started talking about what had happened in the time that we'd been apart. And I told him my experience, and he said, well, there's this person I work with who talks like that. Would you like to meet him? And he arranged that meeting. And in that meeting, this person then told me about someone he had met who was part of an organization called the Brotherhood of the White Temple. And as soon as I heard those words, something happened. And there was a meeting then subsequent to that. And then a short time later, I joined that organization, which is an organization that is teaching The word is metaphysics. It is a very broad spectrum of information that delves into how things work from all perspectives. And that was, for me at that time, that was exactly what I needed. I connected to information and individuals that remain the most important connections of this life. Through that, I connected to the person who began the Brotherhood. He had passed away maybe 8 years previously, but the connection was real nonetheless. And his name is Dorreal. That's Doreal. And that connection remains.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how long, over what period of time did this all happen? If you would,
That all happened when I was 19.
and
And so, yes. Yeah. Go
and
ahead.
how long did it take until you made the, uh, like you felt like you kind of fell into the new part of your life, like kind of became you, the new you, so to speak.
That's a long period of time. What happened was that just began a journey of the study of metaphysics. And it was an intense journey that went on for, I'm going to jump through all kinds of experiences until I was 47. Because the next really intense shift and change happened at that age when a book literally fell off the shelf in a secondhand clothing store in a city called Edmonton in northern Alberta. And that book had a very strange title. It was, "Nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly the way things are." Okay, there it is. And so I buy it, I take it home, I read it. And the book is by a man named Bob Frizzell, who took a 6-day workshop. And what he's describing in that book is that 6-day workshop and some other things that he had done. And the 6-day workshop that he took was by a man named Drunvalo Melchizedek, who you've already mentioned. And when I heard and connected to that, I knew that this was something I had to, once again, the desire was growing from the heart.
Yeah, sometimes it comes upon us like uh, curiosity. It's like, I want to know. This is rings a bell. It's so intense. I need to find this out. It's like sometimes it's hard to put into words the feeling and the energy that comes when it's like you tap onto something that you feel like I already know, but I don't know. I need to know. So it's an interesting emotion. The reason I ask this question is because many times we meet people. I know you probably met people like this, and I definitely did. That they come into spiritual work of rediscovery themselves through some workshops of some nature or books, or even techniques that they start practicing, and then they give up easily on it. They give up because they feel it takes too long, or is not happening right for me, or for me it's not working, I'm not good enough. And this is also one of the reasons that I decided to do this podcast, to bring information here for people to meet people, famous, less famous, not famous at all, nothing, just people and their stories. Because what is, I feel it's important, and I wanted also to find from you to share this information, is that when we find something that we love, that it's a calling in our heart, is to stick with it.
Yes.
And give ourselves the permission to love ourselves by doing what we feel as a calling in our heart. Because if we put it on the side and we continue to do things for other people and forget about ourselves, our desires, our passions, our love, our calling, we pass through this life and we realize at some moment I could have done that and I did nothing with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to find out how would you address this to people that they are still in the middle of searching and trying to discover for themselves what to do and how to do.
Yes. Wow, that's a great question. And so I'll do my best to respond from what I know about this process. Each of us, as we proceed through life, there will be moments when we have experiences that can be said to add a degree of trauma, of pain, of sorrow, of wounds. All of these things accumulate over time. And what they tend to do is they add, I keep speaking about the heart. And what these experiences tend to do is they add literally blockages from entering that space. And there are actually points in the body that serve that purpose. It's a protection for the heart. These things tend to diminish our self-worth. And therefore, there are all kinds of methods and classes that are available in this time to help people begin to move through, understand, and begin to work through these issues so that they can move into the heart, the place where real change happens. And we're all on a journey to do precisely that. And we've all accomplished different amounts of that healing process. If you come to a point in your life where you are feeling that resonance with information and you're starting to feel an opportunity for intense change and movement in another direction, if you allow that pain, that sorrow, whatever the emotional blocks are, if you allow that voice to be louder than the voice of encouragement, and yes, you can do this, then perhaps you won't be able to move in that direction fully. There's nothing wrong with that. All things happen in right divine time. And so if you force things, then it's just the way life works. If you try and force things without having done that inner work, then at some point it can even add to the trauma.
Yeah.
It's something as simple, I'm sure we're going to be talking with an audience here that is able to understand things like chakras.
Yes.
And so I'll say this, if someone is forcing energy work like that, instead of allowing it to happen in its own time, the consequences can be quite severe. Forced energy work is a problem. It becomes another kind of trauma in our body. So
Yeah, it's true.
Everything does happen in right divine time. So loving yourself, allowing things to happen in a natural way, and trusting that is a part of the healing process itself. What's the difference between feeling like I can't do it or listening to a little voice inside that says, yes, you can? What's the difference between that? Where's the energy of that? It's so minor, such a small difference, yet it makes a huge change in how we proceed through life.
Yeah. So it's like being sensitive enough and give yourself permission to listen to your inner voice and to give course to the inner voice. Not to allow sometimes the voice of the mind, of the personality, as we say, the conditioning of this world to say, oh, you want to do this is stupid. And then to move on and just not to allow to flow with what your heart connection is to something in the world. And we talk a lot about synchronicities, which is basically what you're saying at some point is like things come in our way at the right moment, as like the universe, or like people talk about missions that they have in their life, like they're set up to do something in this life. It was like something that was programmed in their life to come at the right moment so they can meet like we met, to meet at the right moment, to develop a relationship, or work, or love, or family, whatever they may have. And if they don't stay in that synchronicity, they miss the opportunity, or like you said, they hurt themselves, either or. And that is so true. As well as energy work, you're talking about um, welcoming energy not at the right time. I learned that doing Reiki, because Reiki was my first encounter, so to speak, directly in a energetical practice. And I've learned, one of the first things I learned about Reiki was that a Reiki attunement and practice is to be given to someone when they are at the right time. And not even you, as a Reiki master, you cannot do more for a person than they are prepared to receive in one moment, because you can do it. But the consequences are, especially to some levels of Reiki, especially I think in Karuna Reiki, you unfold so fast that healing that takes place, energetical healing, is too much, too fast, and it's overwhelming for the subject, the patient, the person. So instead of taking care at your own pace, that you are prepared to receive all that in a year, everything starts happening in a month. So imagine it's like a tsunami coming over you in a month instead of dealing with the situation in a year. So of course everything is upside down, and you can get really traumatized because you don't understand what is going on, what is happening with me, how can I get out of this. And I realized that it can happen in any type of work. That is Reiki, that is breathing, that is meditation, that is like some people are going, and I met someone that they had done a procedure by a shaman somewhere, and all of a sudden they could see. They opened their third eye. And they were so traumatized and so fearful, but this particular person didn't know what on earth is happening to her. And she looked for like 2 years for people to help her, and unfortunate for her, she found someone that did exactly the opposite to her, and then she was traumatized. Why did this all go away? So for like 5-6 years or more, she was like in between worlds because of that. So it's true. I noticed traveling and doing work like you too, that many people want everything to happen now. And if everything doesn't happen now, they kind of abandon the work instead
Yeah.
of understanding exactly what you said. So,
Mhm.
what would you like to say for these people that are a little bit more impatient And I know we know many of them. And they say, if it doesn't work in a week, in two, in a month, it means it's not for me and I'm going to leave it. And then I notice that they come back after some years because they realize that maybe it was for them, but all these years they just went from work to work, different types of trials of different works, but they didn't stay within neither one, and they come back. So, what would you like to say to the people that are rushing through things and they expect everything to happen now? And what advice would you have for them for your long experience?
Well, this may sound strange, but even this, in its own way, is a part of perfection. They're just making choices that may indeed lead to more pain, more sorrow, more actual physical issues, emotional issues, all of that. All roads are leading home, though. And so I will say that because of one specific principle, and that is the principle of trust. I say that because I know and trust life. Regardless of what happens, we are on our way home. This I know. So if you're rushing, that denotes something called impatience. And what is impatience? It is not trusting life. You're saying, I don't trust life, therefore I've got to take charge, I've got to take the reins. I'm driving this train and I want it now. And that is a very difficult way to go into relationship with life.
Yeah.
Life knows exactly and will present exactly what is needed or is necessary for you to move ahead. When you're forcing that, you're not trusting. When you're not trusting, I talk a lot about creation in my work because the principles of creation follow through every aspect of life. When we create anything at any time, there is a movement that's required. And that movement is trust. When we create, we are moving through the void. We're changing the situation of life by moving through the void, where something that does not exist in this creation now moves into creation. That can only happen if at some level there is trust.
Yes.
And so, if we're constantly trying to force that to happen, I think you'll find that you end up hurting yourself rather than improving things. Life can't honor something that's going to damage you and others. When I work in the work that I do, I'm always reinforcing something. Whenever I have a desire, I always add a little bit of fine print to the contract. And that little bit of fine print says, this is what I desire. And this is what I ask for in my highest good and in the highest good of all. What that does, those last words, are a way First of all, you've stated your desire, you've felt it, you've brought it into that movement, and then you give it to God. So the question becomes, can you trust that? Can you trust God?
Beautiful, you said. You know, when we do the ATIH workshop and we do the creation, it's just about that. And it happened to me, and I even heard during the workshop we did first time at Drumvalo, people asking, well, do I have the permission to create, to manifest? Because, you know, it's creation of God, and who am I? And I realized that as long as you get to this moment in your meditation, in your state where you initiate this process of creation and you allow yourself to trust, basically you become a co-creator and you are within God. So it's not you, just you. Hello, I'm here on the street creating all this and making something. It's like I put that energy, that vibration, that emotion, that state, and it's like a language, a communication between me within God that I am, and I become a co-creator, and it's within the divine, as you say, into divine creation, divine permission for the highest good of all. Is like in a space and time and in a place basically where it's not my ego that is doing that. It's not my ego that is in action, it's the energy, the divine energy. And I noticed that also in the sessions of breath work that I do, that many times people have the same thing with trust, is allowing themselves to be in the energy. They breathe and they open themselves to the energy. And then when the intense energy comes, they go back to the mind and they get fearful because they don't trust the energy. And I say, this is the energy that created us. This is the intelligence of the energy that is the created this universe. It's not the intelligence on our little brain that created the universe. It's the intelligence of the divine creation of this energy. And it takes sometimes for some people it's fast to kind of embody that, and for some people it may take a month, a year, 2 years, who knows. But as you said, is like staying with it and not running away saying I'm not worth. But sometimes maybe they come back, maybe not, maybe as we said before, maybe next life, who knows. Yeah. What can you talk a little bit about sound healing? I was so fascinated, and you actually came to Romania, and we had some sound healing workshops. I think twice or 3 times. I don't remember correctly. So who knows? Maybe we'll do another one. Or what would you like to say to people about sound and vibration and how that can support us in this whole process of reawakening to who we are?
I'd love to talk about that, but before we do,
Yes.
I'd like to say just a couple more things before we this subject, because I've mentioned the heart a couple of times. I've talked about things like the blockages from the emotional wounds, etc. And I'd like to express that the heart is the most powerful thing in creation. And that is why it's so protected. Until the right time, you simply don't get in there fully. And so there's really two main places where that blockage is located. And the one that I've actually indicated already is from above the heart, just above the universal heart chakra, the width of your hand, a little bit of sacred geometry. You find a place, the width of your hand above it, that is the thymus. And there we store all of those traumas and emotional issues and all of that. And we do that because the energy that's coming in from above, if we activated all of that without dealing with the pain, we wouldn't have the capacity to do it for the right reasons. And the other way of entering is from below, and there's another center there called the solar plexus. And that is also operating so that it protects the heart. And in this case, it's because of, you might say, I want all of that information to come through because that's my intuitive ability.
Mm-hmm.
I'm connected to Mother Earth. She's got all kinds of information. I want that in my heart. Yes. Have you come to the terms that you could call partnership with your ego?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, then that little blockage will not be released.
Yeah.
Because the heart is not going to allow the ego the full expression of its power. So these two are operating until the moment when we have come to a place where we can be at peace with the ego and at peace with the mind. When all of these, the heart, the mind, the ego, can come together in partnership, then that's when the real ability and the real power of all of that comes into play. And so,
Yeah, that is so beautiful what you said. And I was going to come back later to this, and we'll come back later a little bit to this because I agree with you 1,000%. The most powerful, the heart has the most power in our lives. It's all our knowledge and the history of ourselves is in our heart, our memories, the power to create in the one language of the universe, which is love. It's here, and we have, and there is my breathwork teacher, Dan Brule, was saying beautifully. Not knowing this work of ATIH, actually, he did the workshop with me in Romania many years ago, and he was fascinated. And he said, "You know, the heart is already open. What you said is that we built around the heart protection, just so not everything can enter there, because the protection, we need to take care what is around the heart, because the heart is open, welcoming everything." And it was fascinating to see that he brought this information and he understood this through his knowledge of the breath work before he had any information about what we do. And it's so beautifully coming into this place. And we as humans, especially when we understand that as a spirit we had many other experiences, and this particular one that we experience now, and all that emotional trauma and things that we went through, it build up, and we need to take care of us and to be gentle, to be loving, to be forgiving, and to allow it to be released so we can finally go and really go deep into our heart and access what we have so beautifully inside there. Yeah, it's wonderful.
great. And so a little bit about sound healing.
Yes,
then.
I found that when I did the sound work with you for the first time, I found out that was so powerful and so healing. I mean, I experienced uh, some healing of a trauma that I didn't even know I had. Something to do with fire. I think it was a time when I experienced fire. You know what I mean? So being on that table where we used to practice the sound techniques with the tuning forks, all of a sudden I could feel the smell, the everything, until I realized it wasn't in the room there, but it was in my memories, in my cell memory. So once that realization came from, and I understood what it is, within seconds, everything disappeared. But I felt pain in my body. I felt all sorts of things. And even the smell, like I thought it's burning the coffee maker or something in the place we were doing the workshop with you. So that was the moment that when I didn't realize only in a mental way, like in a cognitive way, what the sound is doing, the sound healing, but I felt it. So the moment that I felt it, I embodied it, I knew it, that this is true, it works. It wasn't just reading a book, it was experiencing in my own body, in my own feelings, in my own consciousness, in everything. So what would you like to tell them? Because you are the teacher on this.
Well, one thing I'll start with is that really the reason that sound is so powerful is because it is a catalyst for memory. I think we've all had the experience where we hear a song from our past, and all of a sudden we're right there. We're back in that moment. And that works not only into the past that could be called this life, it goes even beyond that into past lives. We have at this time a direct relationship to a time in our past civilizations where there was the ending of a long-term civilization that happened in a very cataclysmic way, and that was Atlantis. And so much of the sound work, even other aspects of healing work, that are happening now on this planet have a direct relationship with that. And that has something to do with the movement of time. We are one half of a cycle of this planet, and this planet's long cycle is measured in something called the precession of the equinox, where the Earth wobbles on its axis, and one of those wobbles takes a little less than 26,000 years. When we move through time, it is not a straight line. It's not a linear movement. It is, even if you look at astronomy now, when they show the planetary movement and the movement of the sun, you will see, as they demonstrate that, the planets moving around the sun as the sun is moving through space. The sun is also moving in a spiral, and everything else is moving around that spiral in our solar system. It's all about spirals. And there's a key moment in a spiral movement. There's two key moments. The first is the halfway point, and the second is the completion of that spiral. We are exactly one half of a precession of the equinox, or 13,000 years, a little bit less, away from the end of Atlantis. And Atlantis had a cataclysmic ending, largely because of the misuse of technology. That's a whole long story. So here we are now, 13,000 years later, and we have many of the same technologies. And we have a decision to make, because at that time, there were technologies that were misused and misapplied. And That was allowed to happen. In some ways, that's what consciousness chose to do. And again, given enough time, I could explain why. And it was all perfect.
Yeah. Well, we'll do more episodes. We'll
Yeah,
continue
yeah.
our
No,
talk.
I understand, because
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a long story. At
Yeah.
any rate, here we are, and
Yeah.
we have the same decisions to make. We have the same opportunities for using technologies like sound in a way that is in the highest good, in my own highest good and in the highest good of all. Or we can also do the opposite. And so these are the decisions that are being made now. And what I'm witnessing is consciousness is remembering. There are so many here that are back now in the same place, and many are waking up. Maybe they don't consciously realize the connection to that time, but somehow they know that this is important. And that is why I believe sound healing is becoming, there's so much awareness around it now, and it's becoming a powerful tool to assist us to remember this is our choice, and to help make this time the choice that is adding to life instead of choosing to destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that the vibration, the frequency that the sounds have, like we experience with you, with the tuning forks at that moment in time, the sensation that you actually feel it, the energy, the vibration moving through your body, and how it taps into certain points and something happens, and it's like shaking a coat that has dust on it. You shake it and then everything falls into place and you feel all of the sudden much better. And sometimes you may not even know why. And as I say many times to people when we do healing, whatever we do, there's a technique. I say it doesn't even matter to remember what happened. Important is good that you just release whatever it was there. It would be hard to start to remember everything. It would be maybe even painful. So just allow it, like you said earlier, trust the process and let everything go, and trust that you're on your path to higher and better things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What in this, using the sound, now it just came to me, the sound of the heart. Remember when we do the ATIH, we do the sound of the sacred space of the heart, and the sound, we have to use our voice to create the sound of the vibration of the sacred space, and the tiniest place in the sacred space. And how did you find that impacted people that you worked with? Did they say something to you? How did they feel about it? Did it help them to find that inner peace? How do you connect to that part?
Well, doing the work of awakening the illuminated heart is fascinating in so many ways. Um, one of the things I've come to understand is that it's actually amazing. We can get almost everybody in the space of a 4-day workshop, almost everybody who comes will move into the sacred space of their heart. It, it's amazing that anything can be that effective. What I've also learned is staying there is a whole other issue. And without having done the work that I mentioned previously, um, there will be, for many, a limited amount of time that they can actually occupy that space. The real work begins then by understanding and then following the way home, the way to get back there. And one of the ways you can use to get back is sound. When you're in the sacred space of the heart, there is a sound. And that space can then lead you to the next movement, which is what is called in the workshop the tiny space of the heart. And then in that space, there's another sound. It essentially is another frequency of the same sound that's in the sacred space.
Yeah.
It's higher. And in my work, I found that those two sounds for me related to two sounds that I work with in other ways. The first one is the sound of the movement of the earth in her journey around the sun. That is a sound. It is a frequency. And anything that is a frequency can be changed by octaves into a sound that we can hear. And so if anyone is interested who's listening to this, I can give you the exact frequency of that sound. The frequency is 68.05 hertz. And it's
Good.
same frequency that the original didgeridoos of the Aborigines was tuned to. It's the same frequency that the sitar and the drone strings of the sitar are tuned to. That's the frequency of the earth in her journey around the sun. And you can do that mathematically, or you can do it by feeling. And I've just explained two areas of the world that developed by feeling. Then the second frequency, the frequency of the tiny space, is an octave of that 68.05, and it is following something called the Fibonacci sequence. When you move up 9 progressions of the Fibonacci sequence, you come to the number 55. So if you multiply 68.05 by 55, you have a number now, 3,700 and some hertz, that is the frequency I hear in the tiny space. Now, I can't say for sure that that's going to be the frequency for others, but that's what happens for me. Others don't relate to sound. So not everybody relates to sound as deeply. There are other ways to experience both the sacred space and the tiny space in the heart. And when I say sound, it's no different than saying to people that when you enter these spaces, there will be different qualities of light. What is light? How do you experience light? It's no different than saying when you enter these spaces, there'll be differences in the qualities of feeling. All three of those things, sound, light, feeling, they are different ways to experience the reality.
Yeah.
And all of those are valid. There is no right one way for doing this. There's always a choice that we can experience things, and those are the essential three. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very powerful, very interesting. It's I feel it's like having the understanding, give ourselves permission just to be, experience, listen, pay attention. Um, Even when we don't believe in something, when our mind, our program mind, system of beliefs is saying, no, no, it's not possible, to say, let me stay a little bit with this and see what's happening here. Because obviously, if the people that are listening to us or watching us now, even if they have doubts in their mind, they are here. So if they are watching us, they're already in the process somehow. So it's just giving themselves the time and the patience to stay with something. And I believe that uh, I myself was trying to figure out a way how I can share more than just teaching a class or doing a healing session. And this is when this whole idea was born, in sharing information and seeing um, for each one of them, wherever they are home or sitting, oh, I'm not the only one that's going through this. Somebody else went through the moments of doubts. So I'm gonna ask you: did you have any moments in your this many years, beautiful years that you spent doing this work, when you had doubts, where you had moments where you didn't believe in yourself, in your strength, your power, your abilities 100%, or you felt maybe I'm doing the wrong thing, or anything like that, that kind of try to take you away from your course? Did that happen to you?
How about every day? At some, there will be that little voice inside, regardless of what we've done in this life. You know, there's this old cliche in the so-called New Age world that says life is like an onion. You peel off one layer, and what do you have? You've got another layer underneath. And so that's very true. We are never, if we're in this world, we we are in the process of ascension. We are in the process of becoming whole and complete. And therefore, we are going to, because this world is polarity, it exists because of a creative principle that is polarity. We will have these moments, sometimes frequent, sometimes less frequent, where life, that little voice comes inside and it says, no, you can't. No, you can't. You're not good enough. Or it says, it might say the opposite. You know, that's one way to look at things. Another, and this happens as well, another says, oh, you're too good for that. You're way better than this. Well, either way is the ego. When the heart and the ego and the mind are in balance, there's only love. And so that is an opportunity. When that little voice comes in, it's an opportunity to remind yourself what's real and what isn't. Being better than, being less than, neither of those are real. In that moment, if you can come back to that, then you can move on. So, yes, I have moments all the time. And the more I remember that that's an opportunity to go back into my heart and to go back into balance, then the smoother this movement becomes.
Yeah, that is so true. I'm happy that you said that, because I feel that many people have this very question, and they feel that they are not worthy, they are less, they are not good. And knowing you and knowing a few of my friends that are also doing this type of work, I know that, including myself, we all have that those questions and those doubts and moments, and we wake up Sunday and say, "What am I doing? It's not good," or it's exactly as you said. And the only, for me, the only um, band-aid, so to speak, in the moment that I found, is to realize, knowing, coming from the knowing part, okay, it's okay to feel this, because You're okay? And I wasn't sure if it disconnected. And it's coming from the part where I know it's okay to have these thoughts. It's okay to this emotion to come. They exist. They are part of me, and I'm staying with it. And going to the place where I say everything is perfect as it is, whatever it is for me to understand something, to discover something, to experience something, even if my mind is saying something else or my heart is saying, just stay with it, breathe in it. So the breath work helped me a lot during all this time, or the sound, the music, putting a certain sound, is just stay with it, breathe in it, allow it to be. And certainly within a few minutes, an hour, a day, whatever it happened in my life, that energy passed through, and then I was able to continue what I was doing, and with a different energy, with a different vibration, with a different vibe state. So staying with it, in it, it's I think and I feel a great thing. I don't want to say an advice, because we are not here to give an advice to anyone, but just a great thing to know for people that are experiencing this, that it's normal.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
normal, and
Yes,
it's just allow it, and as you said earlier, trust the process. It's part of the process.
yes. If anyone comes to you and says they don't have these issues and these feelings, then and that they're perfect in every way, then turn and run in the other direction.
I told people many times this: if somebody comes and tells you that they know everything and they have the answer to any possible question and they know it all, and they are saying my truth is the only truth and things like this, I said, run. Run, because we are, how I feel, we are just coming out of being surrounded by this programming, mental programming, and all of us in the same direction, and just not giving ourselves permission to access a higher consciousness where we can make uh, our own judgments or understanding or experiencing consciousness. So we are coming out of that, and we keep talking about getting rid of limited belief systems. So now what am I doing? I'm going and turning into somebody that's saying, do only what I say. So I'm giving one system for another system. So yes, that is true. And I believe that the biggest and so most interesting people that have something to give to this world, and we all can learn from them and experience together with them, are those that are natural, and they are able to say when they don't know something, I'm not sure, I'll look into it because I don't have an answer for you right now. So then I know that I'm safe. What else would you like to give as an to share with people as from your experience of um, allowing things to happen, of living and trusting the universe that you're on your path, and that you are at the right place at the right time. Well, I don't know, whatever you feel that it's important for them to take from this that we shared here tonight.
We are in a momentous time in history. We are at the end of a very, very, very large cycle of time. I mentioned the precession of the equinox earlier. Right now, we are not just halfway through one of those precessions, we're at very close to the end of a much larger cycle than that. And I call that cycle a breath of God, where in this creation there is an in breath. And then, just as we do, there's an exhale. And we are almost at the end of one of those breaths. And just like I mentioned the solar system moving in a spiral. All of this movement happens in a spiral too. It's not at the same place when it completes one complete movement in that spiral. It has progressed. So we're very close to the end of one of those breaths and the beginning of the next one. And some of the pressure that is being felt now in this world is that there's a sense within people. We are so much more sensitive than we understand or realize, perhaps. There is a sense in those understanding, oh, we're coming to something momentous. Am I ready? There's all kinds of reasons for tension in the world at this moment, and that's certainly one of them, but it's not one that many understand. We're very close.
Yeah.
Others are able to sense that momentous things are already in operation, and the changes that are happening here are happening extremely quickly. And what I see in the world is that we are moving so rapidly. I'll give an analogy, and I will suggest that people go up after hearing this and look up a few key words and watch a couple videos. The first word will be cymatics, and I'm going to spell that. CYMATICS. Look at a few videos and look at some of the simpler ones. There's all, like everything on YouTube, there's thousands to choose from. Find a simple, basic video that shows you the movement of fine particles of sand on a metal plate that has a speaker underneath it that's charging that plate. And then someone is turning the pitch of that sound up in frequency gradually. What you will see is that at a certain level of pitch, that fine sand moves into a beautiful geometry. And as the pitch continues to be increased, it goes back into chaos so that you can't see anything but these things vibrating on the metal plate until, as the pitch increases, again, it comes into an even more complex and beautiful geometry. This will continue on and on and on as the sound, the pitch increases. Just go look at cymatics and watch it and realize that we are like one of those little fine grains of sand on that metal plate. And right now, we're in a pattern that it looks like total chaos. We're in chaos, seeing nothing but all this chaos all around us. And all we are is in a moment between those geometries. And when they form almost instantly. The pattern is there. And when we're in that pattern, all of a sudden we're home. Oh, this is where I belong. I went through all that other stuff in chaos in order to understand that at this moment, this is where I belong. This is life. This is how movement happens through the creation. It's part of an old saying, this too shall pass.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand how difficult it can be. However, when you find your own center. And by center, I mean that place of trust that we talked about in the beginning of this discussion. When you are centered in that, even in the midst of chaos, you will know that center. And you become like an island to others. And that's where the geometry, when it forms, will begin to form around that island.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm going to include in the bottom of the video here some links to cymatics. Yeah, it's fascinating. I sometimes I gave this example too because it's true, everything is happening so fast. We're in the middle of these changes, and the time seems different. We have so many other disruptions and things that are happening around us. The ability to focus on things is less and less, and people get confused. What would you give as an example of how to stay? I have to ask you this, although I know what you may answer. But what to give them as advice, or as an example of what to do when they feel that they cannot stay focused, they cannot stay centered, that they feel that they need to run, to escape, or they cannot stay in what they are doing, or they believe that they are useless. When this whole turmoil comes, what would you give them as an example to do? What you recommend for them to do as a practice, as a quick little practice or long practice, whatever? Because I feel that people need practice for themselves at home when they are not with a teacher, with a professor, with a master, whoever. When they are by themselves, what can they do at home?
Well, I'm sure, Michelle, you have a number of things that you can recommend, certainly in the line of breath work, that is a simple way of moving into a place of calm stillness. Just a simple rhythm of breathing in, holding, breathing out, holding. And so I'm sure you can supply that kind of information. Another thing that is very useful is to begin a practice, whatever works for you, of finding a way to move into stillness, to move into your heart, to connect with something that that brings you a feeling of love, whatever that is. You know, it can be an animal.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a feeling of connecting to someone, a grandparent, anyone, a leader that has brought you at some point in time to a place of peace. So that memory, and that memory, as I said before, can be stirred through sound. It can be stirred through the feeling. That's all it takes to go back there and to have that like a key word at a certain point in time. That feeling can take you back to that place of stillness. So there's many different practices. I know you teach, I teach something called the unity breath. I do that daily. And these practices don't have to be hours. They don't have to be 20 minutes. They can happen once you've connected to that feeling. You can use the memory of that to take you back.
Yeah.
And that can happen in seconds. And so
Yeah.
that's really beneficial and useful in your daily life.
Yeah, I wanted to have you speak to this because um, I found out that many people start on a practice and then they give it up for because life happens, they say, without realizing how important for them is for their own personal development. I know that once that you do certain exercise for a certain period of time, it becomes so easy after a while. After, 20, 30, 40, 50 days, it becomes automatic. And personally, when you wish something to happen, there is no excuse. I used to have a small child, and I used to go home from work, from my corporate job, to do the Merkaba meditation with the 17 mudras, and I used to do it every day. God forbid I forget not to do it today. And I used to save a specific time in the day when I was coming home from work. Before I would do anything else, I would wash my hands, change my clothes, make myself comfortable, and just do that. And then I could stay till 3 o'clock in the morning to do everything else. It had to be done at home, but that was so important for me. So I tell people once that you decide what you want to do in your own personal development and you establish for yourself, it doesn't have to be cut and dry, but you establish, I want this and I could use this technique or this technique, stay with it. I don't know, 20 minutes a day, half an hour, 1 hour, something. I recently heard, so it happened that I was on the internet and I heard a famous actor saying that about ambition to become and to do something and build your dream. And this particular actor said, I realized at one moment that if I do 1 hour a day, work on my project, at the end of the year, I would have 365 hours. Says, can you imagine what 365 hours can do for yourself in 1 year? And then I went back myself and I thought about my job, that I would have a project and I said, okay, it has to be done in 2 weeks. And we would work like crazy, 10 hours a day, 8 hours, whatever number of, but it was less than 365 hours and we used to make it. So I said, wow, 365 hours, it's a lot of hours that you can accomplish what you wish to accomplish. So I realized that whatever we accomplished, you and I, and people that we know, and other people like us in this life, is because we dedicated a certain amount of minutes or hours, sometimes minutes a day. And it's not that somebody who's watching us cannot do it, because this was the purpose of this podcast. Anybody can accomplish and do it. It's not that someone is more special and someone is not, or someone can or someone cannot. It's like, because I met so many people and I know that you met thousands upon thousands of people, everybody can do it as long at their own pace. Everybody has their own pace as long as they give dedication. And I don't personally, I don't like to hear people saying, you can do it, I can do it, or turning to me and say, how can you stay so calm, Michelle? I don't know. It's practice. I wasn't to stay so calm all the time. Or to you, Ron, how can you be so peaceful? To say, I don't know. It just happened. It didn't just happen. It's just practice. And we stayed with it. And I want people to take just this, that they can do everything we did, as Jesus said, and better than us, because, and better than other people that we even look up to them, because it's just practice.
Well, that's part of the point that I will make in that regard. Something I learned over time was that nothing is static. Life is always changing. And if we take something as a practice, say a meditation, or even what I just described, something, a breath, or any of these things, if we take it as a practice, if all we ever do is do it in the same way every time, it becomes stale. It doesn't change. And it has to. When we stop practicing and we start to become that which we are intending, when we spend time with it on a daily basis and allow it to change and to move and to alter without judging it, to simply let it be, then that's what life does. And that way, it doesn't become stale.
Yeah.
And perhaps that will help some to not all of a sudden feel the need to drop something because it becomes boring or it becomes stale.
Yeah,
Let
it's
it,
important to have fun with it.
yes, yes. Let it be, let it grow. Yes, let it be part of life.
Yeah. And you know that there comes to a moment when you integrated that and you become that practice, as you said. There were some moments in my life where they're not very pleasant, where I experience certain discomfort, so to say the least. And I realized that instantaneously. It was like in the back of my mind, my angel, my guide, myself saying, breathe. And then at that moment, it was like a click. I started to breathe in a way that I practiced for so long. It just happened naturally. Or I just did certain things that I practiced before. And I was able to stay centered in my heart, as we talk in the workshop in the ATIH to so many people, how to find that place where I breathe, I bring myself here, and in that moment, I'm just them, and I am not going to allow anything that is not peace and love and harmony to disturb my space. But that didn't just happen, that was practice. And at some moment, as we say, sometimes you integrate it and it becomes part of you. But that cannot happen without practice. It's like, what was the egg or the hen? You know, it can be only when you do this constantly for a while. And one day, as you said, you wake up and you are just it. So, yeah. It's interesting, and I would like for us to meet again and to continue this talks. And maybe if people would want to hear some more about something, we can pick up a specific topic. You said
Yeah.
that you would like to share something with us.
Well, I think we've covered a really
Oh,
broad
yeah.
range of things, Michelle, today. And if there are questions that come out of this, then people can absolutely contact you and let you know. And perhaps we can do a session where we can answer some
Yes,
questions sometime.
yes.
Yeah.
I would love to do this because I want to, my wish is to make this as open as possible for, as I said, for people to feel comfortable and accessing information that is not a secret. We don't have a secret. It's about developing a practice of their own, whatever they choose. And maybe in some, maybe some people, I figure out they need to see that it's okay. Everybody is the same. And maybe they need sometimes some tools in how to keep up with the practice. Maybe once we can talk about this. What did I do on a daily basis? How did I do in the moments when I didn't feel like doing it and I still did it? Little things like that. Or people come and say, how can I motivate my child, my mother, my husband, my wife? I said, you can't, because you cannot force anyone to do it. So maybe we will have, I'll ask people also to build a list of questions and answers, and maybe they can come in and invite and do some of this meetings with people, because I feel that we all need this in this moment. It's so much happening in the world, and some people are scared, some people are in peace, but I know that everything is the way it's supposed to be at this moment. And I know that whatever is meant to be, it will happen. It's already happened, as we say in our process of creation. Everything already happened. We just don't know it. Okay. So thank you so much, Ron. It was such a pleasure to see you and to spend time with you today. And I will see you soon. And I'll ask everyone if they have questions to send the questions. They can post them here or send me a message, and we will have another video, and we'll share. Maybe, as you said, we can do questions and answers, and who knows, maybe we'll do another retreat. Maybe you can join us in Romania again. I would love to have you here.
It's been a long time, and
Yeah.
yes, I'd love to get back to so many places. However, I've stopped having the need to move around as much as I did in the past. I'm enjoying that as well, but I have a commitment to life, and that is when I'm asked to do something, that if that request is there from life, then guess what? I show up. Yeah.
You know, as you're explaining something earlier, an angel spoke to me. It came by, so I will share with you something that this angel said, and we'll see what happens. But yes, it's encouragement that I want um, to share with the people. Trust, again, I say trust, as you said too, and never lose faith.
Mhm.
And never say, I cannot do it, or it's impossible, or it's too hard. So thank you, Ron, and I will see you soon, and we'll send love from the tiny space of our hearts to all of those that were watching, and I hope we did a small difference, at least in your life, by watching this talk that we had here tonight together. Thank you so much, Ron.
So mote it be.